Here to tell you more about that is Kevin Yip, the co-founder and COO, and Taylor Smith, the co-founder and CEO. All right, take it away, guys.
Thanks for having us.
How's everybody doing today? Good, awesome. Yeah, thanks again for having us. I'm Taylor, Taylor Smith, the CEO and a co-founder of Blueboard along with my best friend, Kevin. We started this company together, and we are very excited to share with you something that we think about every day at our company. And that's how do you create a meaningful and an impactful employee experience? How do you create some place that people just love showing up at every day? So today we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the employee experience, what it is, what it consists of, why it's important. We're going to talk about design thinking and some principles and how we can apply these principles to different parts of the employee lifecycle. And lastly, we're going to talk about some specific tools that will help you actually create a great employee experience for your employees. That's fine. We can just sit here. So, before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you to NCHRA for having us. We appreciate it. When we were talking to them about various topics to talk about, they talked to us that we have a unique point of view for 3 reasons. So, the first is we think about experience design every single day. We think about how to create a great employee experience through recognition. We're doing it for some of the most progressive, best places to work in the Bay Area. So, Pure Storage, GoPro, Eventbrite, Guidewire, they're all using Blueboard and we obsess over it. So, we think about design thinking all the time. The second, we're millennials. I know a lot of companies are terrified of us and what our generation means for the workforce, but being millennials, we actually understand what our peers are looking for from an employee experience. And lastly, we're a tech company. We're based in Soma, we're here in San Francisco. We're very plugged into the space, we just see what's up. The first point and insight I wanted to share with you is just a very high-level insight from the world that's cool. We know people are staying at their companies for shorter and shorter amounts of time. So, that's where I'm supposed to go to this slide. So, baby boomers, they stay at companies for over 7 years on average, where millennials, under 3 years, and shrinking. So people are staying at their companies for shorter and shorter amounts of time. Everybody knows this is no surprise. What's interesting is how the dollars are flowing into HR tech from an investment standpoint. So while the absolute dollars are growing every year, the lion's share is still going to recruiting and talent acquisition. So we're spending almost 3 times as much on bringing new people in the door, and we're spending way less on getting people to actually stay. These great hires will spend so much money. So where we find ourselves is in this strange place where we're spending more and more money to acquire people who stay at companies for shorter and shorter amounts of time. We're spending more and more for something we get, people that we get less and less value out of. And that's just completely unsustainable. And that's the business service that I kind of talked about.
So what happens when companies invest more in people not at their companies than they do in their employees? Engagement is visible. 2 out of 3 US workers are currently unengaged. And I know many of you already know these stats, so I'm not going to cover them. Instead, I'm going to talk about a few anecdotes of what unengaged employees are actually engaging in. The Rio Olympics. Now, who doesn't love watching Michael Phelps win his 23rd gold medal, or Simone Biles propel herself across the floor doing who knows what? Well, come on, let's not watch the Olympics while you're supposed to be prepping for this huge presentation tomorrow. That's what Taylor told me yesterday. Anyways, over the course of these 16 days, US businesses are expected to lose $5.4 billion in productivity. 5.4. And maybe you're saying to yourself, hey, this only happens once every 4 years. But consider these other annual events and their respective impact on US businesses. NCAA March Madness, streaming of basketball games, updating of brackets, $4 billion in lost productivity. What about fantasy football? The craze of people researching, building, managing their teams, often with coworkers and often at work. In 2015, employers paid out implicitly $16 billion in lost productivity. 16 million, it's crazy. The thing is, the Rio Olympics, NCAA March Madness, and fantasy football are not the cause of the engagement problem. The cause of the engagement problem is neglect. For too long, companies have neglected their employees and failed to build a company, a role, a workplace that truly resonates with them. And this is why employee experience is so critical to them. It's a necessity. If you don't build it, you will not be able to attract, you will not be able to keep your talent. What is the employee experience? The employee experience, each employee experience, comprises of 3 environments. The first is the cultural environment. This is your company culture, the leadership style, the mission of the company, and the sense of purpose it instills in your employees. The second is the physical environment. Now this is your physical workplace. So whether you're a hip startup, have standing desks, or cubicles, a catered cafeteria, or an espresso machine in your kitchen. This is the environment you see, touch, and feel. And lastly is the technological environment. This is the technology your employees use every day. And ideally, technology is supposed to help us get our jobs done, automate routine tasks. Oh, before I jump in there. So why is it so important now than ever? Like Taylor mentioned, it's a demographic. Millennials are the largest generation in the workforce. And if you didn't see, we don't like staring at our job fair. But here's the insight. Ostensibly, myself, Taylor, millennials in general, we are a fickle generation. But as consumers, we can be incredibly loyal. We cling on to brands like Apple and Nike who have found a way to connect with us. Because when I take out my iPhone or I lace up my Nike shoes, it says something about me, who I am at an individual level. Now the companies that can tap into this and build an employee experience that truly resonates, an experience that instills a sense of purpose, pride, and identity, these are the companies that are going to win the war and keep and attract their talent. So let's take a look at Airbnb, an amazing company. #1 on the best places to work list for the past 2 years. They don't have a CHRO. Instead, they've appointed a global head of employee experience who covers traditional HR functions, but it role also extends into things like security and facilities, sustainability, communications, marketing, anything that touches the employee or Airbnb's employer brands. Now, they carefully craft their employer experience from the very first interaction with the candidate all the way to the end of his prospective employee. And how they do it, their approach, is they very much focus on their mission of the company, which is belong anywhere. If you haven't been to the offices, each meeting room is designed based on a popular listing of the site and meant to connect employees to the product of their work. Additionally, the recruitment process has a huge emphasis on one of its core values, be a great host. And it showed, the results have showed 90% job offer acceptance rate. It's crazy. And maybe you're saying to yourself, hey, my company, myself, I'm not Airbnb. That's okay. But what you need to be thinking is how do I think like Airbnb and create an amazing experience for my life? Okay, now let's take a step out, right? Let's think about our employees. Everyone thinking of them? Now let's think about our employees as customers. Would they buy from you? Would they come back? How would you build the best experience at each interaction? Now, design thinking has long been heralded as the approach companies use to build amazing products. IDEO, the product designer who pioneered the concept, built the first Apple mouse using it. They invented the mouse. Tesla built the Model S using it. So what's the process look like? #1, understand someone's needs. Who's your user? What do they know? What do they go through? What pressures do they address every day? The most important thing when designing something for someone, whether it's a product, a process, or a program, is to gain empathy. The second is to explore and ideate various solutions. Now this is your creative stage. When you go through this, you're going to get a notebook, you're going to go to a whiteboard, and you're going to just jot down as many ideas as possible. And a lot of times when you're going through this, you're going to have an urge to kill bad ideas. Don't. Think of it as First step, create a prototype. Build it. Make it real and put it out there. It's an easy step, but it's tough. You gotta overcome that fear. And the fourth is test and iterate. Once you've gotten it out there, figure out and get feedback. What worked, what didn't work, what people were excited about, what did they talk about, what were they confused about, what do you need to explain better? Aggregate that feedback and improve the design.
So we're going to take these design thinking principles, this framework, and we're going to use it to apply it to one part of the employee experience. And so the other day I was meeting up with a friend, Christine Mohead. She's the VP of People Experience at One Medical. And if you've never met Christine, she's awesome. She was the first HR lead at Virgin America. She helped grow them from 30 to thousands of people. But we got to talking about design thinking, and she shared an example with me about how One Medical used design thinking to redo their annual performance reviews. So before, the current state, about a year ago, was that they had a typical look back, focus on past performance reviews. So what they neglected is they didn't spend enough time on career development and where an employee may want to go the following year. They focused all on past performance. And so unwittingly what they did is they created an environment where the employee was unsure whether or not it was safe to pursue another career or other interests inside the company. So what they did is they risked losing some of their best people to outside organizations where someone could try to career. And so they realized this, and Christine and her team put their heads together because they needed a new solution. And what they did is they came up with a bunch of ideas, but they wanted to answer two questions. One question is how can we enable and encourage our own people to meet their own career development efforts within our company? And then the second question is how do you create an environment and a culture where it's safe for lateral progression? So they put their heads together for 2 or 3 months, and they came up with a prototype, and they launched it. They launched V1, and V1 looked very different. For V1, 1/3 of the time in the review was spent looking back at performance. 2/3 was spent working with each individual employee to understand what experiences that employee wanted over the next year to further their career. And another thing they did in addition to that is they encouraged people to take on joint cross-functional teams that had nothing to do with their sole role. That was only a limited time. They couldn't just jump and join the team. But the goal was that people could experiment and see what it was like to hold another role without completely leaving the company or leaving what they're doing today. And it had some interesting consequences. So 2 anecdotes I'll share. One was interesting. Someone on Christine's own team confessed that she actually really wanted to get into real estate, work with the real estate team, which is perfect because one of the opens up offices and companies. And so they set up a period for her to work with the real estate team for 2 months. And interestingly enough, after 2 months, she realized she didn't really like real estate and it wasn't all that she thought it was kind of to be. So she ended up staying 100% with the real estate. There was another high performer in the company who mentioned that she was actually interviewing with other companies because she wanted a career change, and she just received an offer from Google. She said, wow, I was really considering leaving, I didn't even know this was an option. They ended up keeping and retaining her, which I'm sure a lot of us would want to retain our top people if we just knew they wanted an opportunity to move into another role. What I think is interesting, at least as they're continuing to iterate, it's not the final product right now, so one feedback that they got pretty consistently from the managers is 1/3 is actually not enough time to look back and do a full review, which looking at it that makes sense. And so next year they're continuing to iterate and they're going to be switching it closer to half-half. It'll be interesting to see how it continues to evolve over time. But now we're going to move into talking about tools. What tools can I use to improve my employee experience? And the one thing that I want to mention is that there's no tool out there that can and will deliver and design an amazing employee experience without your help. To design an amazing employee experience, something that's going to engage people, the design still is up to you. As HR leaders, as practitioners, it requires human design. But what tools are great at, they're great at facilitating, they're great at automating, tracking, measuring, pretty much anything to do with employee experience. So we're going to evaluate a few tools that we found recently on the web. So we're going to start with onboarding. We're going to talk about learning and development, engagement surveys, and final recognition. So let's start with onboarding. Onboarding is an incredibly part of the employee experience because it's one of their first interactions with a company. And so, onboarding is a little bit like dating. When it starts, the new hire must prove to you that you made the right choice in hiring them. And as a company, it's a great place to work that you are. You really want to move this person into an engaged, long-term relationship. So how do you do that? Well, it starts with onboarding. And what does a great onboarding look like? You probably build some excitement during the pre-boarding. The person shows up on the first day, they have all the tools they need to get up to speed and be contributing as soon as possible. And it also helps if you've laid out a plan for them so they know how they're going to continue to develop after they join the company. So I think we all know that in theory. It sounds great in theory, but it doesn't always happen that way. Most onboardings that I hear of and that I've been through, I'm a very excited candidate, I get an offer, I sign it, and then there's very little communication in the next month leading up to my first day. There may be some limited communication, but it's typically related to administrative tasks. But what a lot of companies are doing is they're missing a huge opportunity to build excitement, get people really excited for that first day, and to actually validate that they made the right choice in choosing to work at my company. So we found this cool tool called Sapling that's trying to change this, and their whole goal is to change onboarding from an administrative process more to this career developmental launchpad. And they've created a really slick approach to employee onboarding. So what it looks like is this. On Sapling, the second you accept a job offer, you get invited to a pre-boarding portal where you can actually read all about your company. You can read about the company history, the mission, the values. You can even read about the team you'll be joining and the individual members of that team. Perhaps my favorite part about it, that I think is really cool, is there's also a personal development roadmap that showcases milestones and check-ins with management over the first 90 days there. So imagine how that new hire feels when they go through this process. They get to learn about the company, they actually get to see that you've created a development plan for that. Me, if I'm that employee, I'm thinking to myself, wow, this company has their stuff together. And I think that's how all of us want new hires to feel when they join our companies. They want us to be excited. They want us to feel validated that we made the right choice. It's not always a good culture to find.
Next, we're going to be talking about learning and development. And in its current state, a lot of companies rely on the 70-20-10 learning. The model stipulates that 70% of learning comes from on the job, 20% from interaction with others, your boss, your coworkers, and the final 10% through formal training. Now the problem with this model is that it doesn't foster continuous learning, and that last 10% of formal training often becomes the day-long boring sessions where content feels stale and even outdated. Now, I remember my time at my first job. I was an auditor. Sorry if I've ever worked with you. And I was put on this public client, and I needed to know this complex reporting called IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards. And at the time, it was becoming impressive, but I didn't know any of it. And I had a training in 2 months, but that wasn't going to help me get my project done today. So what did I do? Anybody? I Googled it. This is definitely not the ideal state of learning. Ultimately, in an ideal state of great learning and development program, you want to give your team the ability to learn current dynamic content, and especially learn in a time of need. Right? Ultimately, the goal is to empower your employees to know everything they need to know to get the job done. So let's go back to my experience. Once I found out I was going to be on this client where I needed to know IFRS, I would have enrolled in a course that would teach me everything I needed to know. And once the project started, I would have felt confident that I could get the job done. One of the tools we like is Udemy. Now, Udemy is an online platform, learning platform, with 30,000 courses taught by 18,000 instructors. They've got 11 million students. Now, their business product is a curated collection of these courses. Ultimately, the product is designed to provide relevant, on-demand skills training to your employees. So if your engineer needs to learn a new programming language, or maybe the marketer you just onboarded needs to get up to speed on the software, automation software, you can do just that. Employees are able to learn the hard skills in time of need to get the job personal development.
Cool. So next, if you're implementing any new changes in your employee experience, engagement surveys are a great tool to measure the impact of all your people initiatives, and it's also great to just plug into employee sentiment at a given time. So previously, a few years ago, if you wanted a quick and easy way to get up-to-date and accurate information on employee engagement, it was almost impossible. Companies usually did one of two things. One is they came up with their questions on their own and they used a manual tool like SurveyMonkey. The other side of the equation is you were a big company with lots of money and you could spend tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to work with an engagement consultancy. But both of those approaches have their shortcomings. I think if you work with, or if you're coming up with your own questions, you may not have the expertise to actually get accurate results that are actually measurable. Then you have to comb through all of the answers, quantitative and qualitative, to make some type of sense of it. And it's incredibly time consuming. The second option, if you work with the consultancies, you do get a great product, but it can take weeks, sometimes even months to get results. So what is the best way to do engagement surveys today? We really like a company called NCHRA. They seem to address both of those two problems and sort of sit right in the middle. It does come out of the box with surveys for every area of the employee lifecycle, all the way from how we treat candidates to offboarding. And it also includes benchmarks from your industry, so that's really interesting. The other thing they've done is they've created a really easy-to-use, intuitive platform for employees. It's great on mobile, so I'm sure all of you know if you make it easier for employees, it's also easier for you to get better or get back the information that you need real time. So the other thing about Culture, just on Tuesday, I haven't tried it yet, but they launched a new performance management tool, performance effectiveness. I haven't checked it out yet, but I just like the fact that they're continuing to launch products that have to do with measuring different types of people initiatives.
So recognition is something near and dear to our hearts. Taylor and I started this company, Blueboard, based on our experiences in our first corporate jobs. I was working at PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, and Taylor had a very similar experience at NCHRA. I was grinding 70, 80-hour weeks on a project. Over the course of the project, I had gained 20 pounds. My girlfriend at the time wasn't talking to me because I never saw her. And, at the end, my work-life balance was in shambles. And after the 3-month project, my manager, she came up to me and said, "Hey, Kevin, thank you so much for your hard work. I can see all the effort and energy and all of yourself you put into this. I wanted to give you this $250 Amex gift card." And it just felt incredibly impersonal. I did not feel valued. And this is the current state of recognition. It's transactional. Now, let's go to this. Imagine if my manager, she had come up to me and said, "Hey Kevin, I know you've been frustrated with your health. And I heard you talking about boxing the other day. I actually got you a membership to the gym around the corner for me so that you can get back in shape." Or imagine if she had come up to me and said, "Hey Kevin, I know you haven't been able to spend so much time with your girlfriend over the project. I got you a cheese and wine pairing class so you can take her out on the next day and spend some quality time." Wow. How would I have felt as somebody who had just sacrificed these past 3 months for this project? I would have felt so happy that she had recognized me in a meaningful way. Ultimately, I would have felt more loyal to her, to my company. On my next project, I would have wanted to work harder, and I would have stayed longer at PwC. This is why Taylor and I started Blueboard. We want to empower managers, empower companies to thoughtfully recognize their best, the people that dedicate their lives to their work. And we do this through experiences. So if you're an employee and you get a Blueboard reward, we can help you set up a summer retreat to Lake Tahoe with your family. Or maybe you want to rediscover your love of music, pick up the guitar, an instrument you hadn't touched since high school. Or maybe you even want to be James Bond. Anybody who wants to be James Bond? So this experience, what it includes is you and a friend will get a fitted tuxedo, or dress for the girls. You'll get picked up in a black bar, and you'll start the day off skydiving. Once you land very safely, you'll have an Aston Martin waiting for you. You'll get to sit around in the Aston for the entire day. had a mixology class where we learned to make the perfect martini. This is as cool as it sounds. And just imagine the buzz it creates in the office. Hey, did you hear Taylor? He became James Bond this weekend. What is that? Who knows? But our product is very simple, right? So how it's used is 3 simple steps. First, managers select the reward level. We have 8 different levels starting from $150 going all the way to $25,000. After you've selected the reward level, you enter in the sheet. What did the employee do to receive this reward? And lastly, name, contact info, and click send. So that's our customers like GoPro, Box, Eventbrite, Guidewire, even Otis Elevators uses us to power their manager and spot recognition programs, their anniversary rewards, employee referrals, and even sales contests. And I wanted to make more of a case, an independent case for experiences. Google had a very interesting recognition program called the Founder Awards. And what it did was they wanted to recognize people who display founder-like qualities with up to $1 million in Google stock. Amazing. Super generous. And what they found was that if Taylor got $1 million stock award and I got 800,000, I wasn't happy that I got 800,000. I was upset, I was frustrated, I was mad that Taylor got 200,000 more than me. Crazy. And so what they learned is, even though they threw all the money in the world at it, this recognition program breeded a culture of comparison. So they scrapped it, gave everyone trips to Hawaii, and people across the board were happy. Now the challenge with recognition is that it's a double-edged sword. If executed poorly, it can cause skepticism, even polarize employees. But if performed well, recognition can win over the hearts and minds of your people and help your company be a great place to work.
Like I said, in conclusion, I think we're excited. It's a very exciting time in the HR space. When it comes to employee experience, we're really just at the tip of the iceberg. It's going to be interesting to see how things continue to develop. When Kevin and I started this company 4 years ago, we were complete outsiders. We knew almost nothing about HR. We'd never even heard of the term employee experience. But over the past 3 or 4 years, we've met hundreds of people, hundreds of practitioners, hundreds of HR leaders, and I think we learned something really important about HR. And what that is every day we may have different roles and have different hats. Some people, there's the HRIS geeks, there's the chatty recruiters, there's all types, right? But I think we all share one thing in common. We really care about people. We love people, we love creating systems and environments where they can succeed and where they can thrive, and that makes me very optimistic about the future prospects of employee experience, because there's a bunch of us who already care about people, and now there's suddenly this huge business need for us to create a great employee experience. So with that, thank you guys. Happy to answer any questions afterwards. Please go talk to all the lovely companies today that are exhibiting. You can learn as much from them as they'll learn from you, which is great. Thank you guys very much.